Well, good morning. This is Dave Jones with Storm Center Communications and GeoCollaborate. This is an update a little bit before the 11 o'clock official update from the National Hurricane Center. But I wanted to get this information out and posted for this morning into this afternoon. I may have another update later on this afternoon or early this evening. This is an update for the Sensitive Information Sharing Environment, the Fleet Response Working Group that works to share information, trusted information across state boundaries, and also to help utility vehicles, fleet utility vehicles, come across state lines and respond to a restoration of power much more quickly after disaster strikes. So this is the satellite picture of potential tropical cyclone number 16. It is looking a little bit more organized, and winds are still at 50 miles per hour, according to the National Weather Service's Hurricane Center. As of 8 o'clock this morning. You can see it spinning around there, and I'm going to dive in. NOAA has instituted the what they call the mesoscale sectors for the GOES East satellite. That means they're focusing on this storm with 1 minute satellite imagery, and I just wanted to share that with you to show you what it looks like. Take a look at that. As a matter of fact, let me bring that full screen so you can just take a look and see what it looks like. You can see the circulation around this center here. So the reason why it's not a tropical storm yet, it is expected to become one very soon, is that it doesn't have a closed wind field of tropical storm force winds. There are tropical storm force winds north of the center because that is where all the thunderstorms are. But you can kind of see, look at this. We can watch these little lines here pop up into thunderstorms. And as soon as that starts to make its way around here, and we have a closed circulation of thunderstorm activity and also tropical storm force winds, then the Hurricane Center will make this a tropical storm. It would become Ophelia if the one out in the central Atlantic doesn't get named first. But that's the way this storm is looking right now. Very impressive satellite imagery from NOAA. And the folks at the satellite operations there within NOAA are bringing this 1 minute imagery so we can show it to you. You can see these low-level clouds here moving around the center. All these low-level clouds, these are like cumulus clouds and scud clouds, some of the lower ones. And these are big thunderstorms that are erupting. As a matter of fact, you can look further to the north. You can see the stream into Wilmington, North Carolina right now, which is some very heavy rain coming in on this northern edge of this potential tropical cyclone. Now, I want to back out a little bit and show you GeoCollaborate because there's a lot of watches and warnings and advisories that have been issued. This is the wind field I was just talking about. You can see that it's all north of that center, but it's beginning to close in now. So I wouldn't be surprised if we had a tropical storm in the 11 o'clock advisory, and if not then, by the 5 o'clock advisory later this afternoon, as this system continues to develop. I'm going to zoom in here and show you what we have going on from the standpoint of watches, warnings, and advisories. And there are a lot of them happening, so I'll zoom in a little bit closer here. On the Outer Banks of North Carolina, we have a storm surge warning in the southern part. That's what this red area is here. Storm surge warning of 2 to 4 feet of expected storm surge. So that is in Pamlico Sound and the tributaries there. Why is that? Because the winds are blowing very strong from the northeast. So it's pushing the water from the northern part of the Outer Banks of the Sound. Here, this is Albemarle Sound here, pushing that water down into the southwestern part of the Outer Banks. That's why this is a storm surge warning. To the north, this purple area here, I can zoom in a little bit closer too. This purple area is a storm surge watch, which means it's possible that we could have storm surge in this area. And heading a little bit further to the north, we have a storm surge warning here on the more exposed area of the Outer Banks. Headed up into southeastern Virginia and Virginia Beach, storm surge warning. There's going to be a constant east to northeast wind blowing at 40, 50, and perhaps even 60 miles per hour, blowing a lot of ocean water and sound water into the coastline. So there's a storm surge warning in effect there. Well, how much storm surge is possible there? Let me go through this. 2 to 4 feet. Currituck Sound, 2 to 4 feet of potential storm surge. Now, moving up just a little bit further to the north, and I can get rid of some of these other layers here. I can turn off the cone forecast and the wind field. I'll leave the wind field on, but I'll turn off the track and the cone just to clear this up a little bit more. And you can see what's happening. So folks in Virginia Beach also have a storm surge warning. That extends all the way up, as a matter of fact, the coastline here to these rivers, the Rappahannock River and also the Potomac River. Look at this. This is the Potomac River, and there is a storm surge watch in effect all the way up just south of Fredericksburg here in the Potomac River. But a lot of water is going to be pushed up the Potomac. There could be some flooding at times of high tide there, and we'll be watching it closely because if the center of the storm moves to the west of Washington, it's going to continue that southeasterly component of wind, and that storm surge watch could easily turn into a storm surge warning. And it looks like we could see anywhere from 1 to 3 feet of storm surge in this area. So also in the Chesapeake Bay, there's the 1 to 3 foot storm surge potential in the Potomac, and that includes all the way up to Washington, D.C. In the Chesapeake Bay, we also have the possibility of surge, and that is a 1 to 3 foot tidal rise because of the south and southeasterly wind, depending on the direction that this storm moves. And the component of the wind is very important. So no matter what, we have a lot of advisories that are in effect. And I'm going to turn off a couple of these other advisories here, like the peak storm surge, surge watches and warnings. I'm going to turn that off. But I'm going to turn on the National Weather Service's watches, warnings, and advisories that they have issued. So let me do that here, and I'll go over. This is GeoCollaborate. I'm going to go right up to the Weather Service watches, warnings, and advisories and turn those on right here. So it's going to be a lot of different colors. I'll also turn off the rainfall forecast. This area of yellow here is a high chance of excessive rainfall. So make sure those of you that live in neighborhoods clean out your sewers. Make sure they're not clogged, because that's a recipe for flooding. And we're going to see that. We're going to see perhaps 3 to 5 inches of rain, central Virginia and southeastern Virginia into central Maryland. Even North Carolina could see that kind of activity. Okay, so I'm going to keep those advisories on, but I'm going to turn off the excessive rainfall forecast outlook so we can see what's going on a little bit underneath of that area. So let me just find the Weather Prediction Center. Here we go. 3-day excessive rainfall is now off. So these are all the watches, warnings, and advisories in effect. And you can see it stretches all the way from North Carolina, where this is all a flood watch because of heavy rain that's moving in. Then we have tropical storm warnings in effect in the southern part of the bay, Chesapeake Bay, out across the Outer Banks of North Carolina. That's tropical storm warning. Out here, we also have tropical storm warnings extending up to the coast of Maryland. So Ocean City, those areas are under a tropical storm warning. And in Delaware, there is a gale watch. So there's a chance of likelihood of gale force winds along there. And also in the Delaware Bay, the lower bay, they're expecting a surge of 1 to 3 feet. And there's also a gale watch in effect there, also for the Chesapeake Bay. So it's likely that the bridges will be impacted here. They may limit crossing. They may close the bridges if tropical storm force winds are recorded and forecast by the National Weather Service. And even on up into Delaware, there are coastal flood warnings in effect for New Jersey and into Delaware here. These are coastal flood warnings. That means flooding is very likely. We'll have high tide and we'll have waves, 3 to 5 foot battering waves on top of perhaps 1 to 3 foot surge or rise in water. So that's going to take a lot of sand out, and it's going to have result in quite a lot of beach erosion. As a matter of fact, in Baltimore City, there is a wind advisory. A wind advisory for Baltimore City. That means winds could gust up to 30 to 40 to perhaps 50 miles per hour because of this, and that will drive a lot of water into actually the Inner Harbor and the Patapsco River here. Those of you living along the Magathie River, the South River, the Severn River, expect water rises because of this storm. And so that's the way it looks for now. Impacts to critical infrastructure. Yes, there will be some impacts to critical infrastructure. Let's take a look at this for South Carolina, North Carolina, Virginia, Maryland, D.C., Delaware, and even southeastern Pennsylvania. We're looking at tropical storm warnings where I just mentioned. Stay tuned to your local updates. There's one coming at 11 o'clock from the National Hurricane Center. And all the local weather forecast offices that are responsible for your area will be issuing those watches, warnings, and advisories. So make sure you stay up to date with them as well. Also, we're going to see those high winds moving into the coastline. I think the timeline, as a matter of fact, let's go back just for a second to the full screen. And I wanted to display when those tropical storm force winds are most likely to arrive. Okay, so you can see the black lines here. I will change the base map a little bit to a street base map just so you can see this a little bit clearer here. So if we're talking North Carolina, those tropical storm force winds moving in at about 8 o'clock this morning. So they're already happening. 2 o'clock in the morning Saturday. This is 8 p.m. Tonight. 2 o'clock in the morning Saturday here, coming through the Outer Banks and part of east central North Carolina, and then starting to touch southeastern Virginia. 8 or 9 o'clock tomorrow morning, Saturday morning, and then coming on up into the coastline, into the southern part of the Chesapeake Bay. By 8 o'clock tomorrow evening, tropical storm force winds are most likely to move into that area. And then by 8 o'clock on Sunday morning, we're talking through Delaware Bay and into parts of northeastern Maryland. So tomorrow, I would say between about 8 o'clock in the evening to 8 o'clock Sunday is when the highest winds will be occurring in the central Maryland area along the Chesapeake Bay. Earlier than that, 8 o'clock Saturday morning to 8 p.m. is the time of strongest winds, persistent winds, really causing that coastal flooding during the day tomorrow. And then in North Carolina, we're already moving in. This is Friday at 2 p.m. It's a little bit before 2 p.m. now, but those tropical storm force winds will be moving in. They're not recorded yet on the Outer Banks, North Carolina. But then at 8 p.m. tonight, they should be impacting places like Wilmington and also Cape Hatteras. Highway 12 is likely to have overwash because of those strong winds. And then moving on up Saturday at 2 p.m., looks like we're going to see 2 a.m., we'll see those tropical storm force winds moving north. So pay attention to your local National Weather Service forecast office. This has been an update for the sensitive information sharing environment. There is going to be impact to critical infrastructure. The winds gusting at tropical storm force wind, hitting those trees that have leaves on them. They haven't fallen yet. It's going to be quite vulnerable for those trees. And also lots of rain is going to saturate that soil. So we could see a lot of trees be uprooted and come down. And those that are really holding in tight could have branches broken off. So think about your boats, giving them the line that they need to rise up, and keep those lines monitored. And also the cars and trucks, vehicles that may be parked in low-lying areas that may flood with a 1 to 3 or a 2 to 4 foot surge. Get those vehicles out of there because that's salt water, and saltwater intrusion, it will ruin your vehicle. So that's it for now. We may be back a little bit later this afternoon or tomorrow morning. I'm Dave Jones with Storm Center Communications and GeoCollaborate. This has been a sensitive information sharing environment weather update for potential tropical cyclone 16, which could form into tropical storm Ophelia, is forecast to do so. And we'll be monitoring it here and posting these updates to the sensitive information sharing environment hub. Thanks for watching. We'll talk to you later.